Hey everyone, Temporal here, and for this session, we are covering group stages. We just had the first day of group stages for Overwatch Homecoming Collegiate 2021, and we had some upsets. 6 out of 8 groups saw what I would have considered upsets, and what I'm considering them upsets based off of is what we see here. That's not quite what we wanted, is what we see here, which is the previous power rankings these are the previous power rankings that we had up, and these are now what I would consider the current power rankings. And obviously, just like before, when we cut over to top 32, maybe some teams that were actually top 32 didn't make it, and that sort of thing. And we're perhaps seeing some things here where perhaps some of these teams that got eliminated are stronger than some that are left, or maybe not. But regardless, our line here goes like this for these guys are effectively out. Not effectively out, they are out of the tournament at this point. There is no path back in. We have teams that are still in to play it. We have most of these teams still need to win one more match. Obviously, a few teams up in these upper areas need to win one more match too. Actually, we have these two teams playing against each other for only one of them can make it. But things got very interesting. So let's cover what happened and how we got here, and then that will make a lot more sense in terms of why we've moved people in some cases rather significantly, and why we would now consider SCAD to be the dark horse team, the crown wearing dark horse team who's potentially going to strike in here and really shift things around. And let's get into how we got there. So we had upsets in 6 of 8 groups. Group 1, however, went exactly as expected. Miami, Ohio is effectively through. They'll still have to do a championship round here, but they've already beat UC Santa Cruz, who we would expect to continue to go through there. Group 2 gets a little bit more interesting in that down in the losers bracket here, we did have Mizzou take down University of North Texas. And our previous rankings would have put North Texas ahead of Mizzou, so that's a little bit of an upset. Not wild or anything at this point. Bay State has qualified. Moving on to Group 3, we see something a little bit interesting, and Winthrop took down Waterloo. That's not what we expected to see happen. It looked like Waterloo, the belief was that Waterloo was a pretty darn solid team. Waterloo had taken over wins against Miami, Ohio. Miami, Ohio had taken down Utah. Waterloo had done some good stuff. Waterloo had beat Bellevue earlier in the season. Like, this looked good. Hey, this makes sense. These guys are a good team. But with them out, that is quite the upset. They lost it to Winthrop, who was in the tier below them. But then even more amazing than that was as we continue through in Group 3 here. Oh, actually, that might be the case. Then after we see that, so they lost out in the winners to Waterloo, and then they lost to Illinois Orange. And Illinois Orange was our lead good team. They were our lead good team, and they were our lead good team because in NACE, in the play-ins, they had beat Ohio State. Ohio State had previously beat them in their division regular season, but then in the playoffs, 3 seed versus 2 seed, Illinois Orange flipped it and beat them 3-2. So they were the top of what we were considering our good team bracket here. Well, now they've added to that. They're going, no, move us up higher. And they did that by taking down the Warriors. So was that Illinois Orange playing out of their mind? Is Illinois Orange a lot better? Have they just massively improved? Or did Waterloo kind of fall apart after they took a loss? Really hard to know, but that is quite the upset to see both Winthrop and Illinois Orange take down Waterloo. As we move on to Group 4, we see we had UC Irvine in here. We had Toronto, Converse, and Bellevue. So we had Toronto wasn't expected to do anything, but Irvine, Converse, and Bellevue, 3 strong teams. Converse was expected to be the weakest of these teams, however. And as we can see here, Converse has gone through and taken down Irvine as well as taken down Converse has taken down Converse took down Bellevue and then took down Irvine. So that's an interesting one. Again, we look over at our previous bracket. We had Converse in the making moves category, at the back of the making moves category, but now they've gone ahead and taken down Bellevue as well as Irvine here. And that takes Irvine out of this spot. Irvine was sort of the lead team, the gatekeeper to the Big Six, the really tough schools to beat. That's a big move. And what that also does is it unhinges SCAD. SCAD has been sort of locked behind UC Santa Cruz. In previous power rankings, we'd sort of locked them back here. And it's because they were stuck behind UC Santa Cruz in a situation where UC Santa Cruz beat them in officials. SCAD had a really tough path through, the bracket isn't right. The Swiss bracket. They faced a ton of good teams, and they did take a loss to UC Santa Cruz. However, they did also beat Valkyries on their way, and UC Santa Cruz has lost to Irvine. So now that this has happened, we have to unhook SCAD from UC Santa Cruz, or we have to move Irvine massively around. And as you guys can see from that, what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to move them like this. We're now in this situation where Valkyries showed up big time and did good work. SCAD have beat them on the way. Maybe Valkyries were always this good, and that's going to bump Irvine back a few spots, as well as break the link that we had between Slugs and SCAD here. That said, Slugs did beat SCAD. Slugs are going to stay in this tier for now, but this is some interesting stuff that we're seeing here. I'd been wanting to move SCAD up. I just knew that from Scrim Strength, but you guys know I don't move people around until I see match results. Okay. Waterloo, you believe, beat Ohio in regular season. That is entirely possible. Yes, Waterloo did beat Ohio in regular season, and that is why in our new rankings, you'll see we have down here, Waterloo is the top eliminated team currently, and Ohio State is right behind them. But Ohio State also lost to Illinois Orange here. Northeastern University not temporal. They don't get temporal buff. Oh, they absolutely get a temporal buff. I mean, I've made this team quite good. This team is much better than they were last year, and they're better than they were before that. But guess what? We've seen the Comets upgrade significantly since last year. We've seen Redbirds enter the scene since last year. We've seen Bay State enter the scene since last year. We've seen a lot of these schools really upgrade, get more serious. We've seen Slugs make their roster work, etc. in this tournament. Like, we've seen SCAD just, okay, they've had a program, but these are things where the entire scene keeps upgrading, and yeah, we've absolutely upgraded Northeastern. But I'm going to continue with my power rankings here. We'll have to continue to do recruiting of roster to really push these guys up here, which we're doing. And if anyone who's like a trials level player wants to and has excellent academics, thinks, hey, a school in the Northeastern area, that sounds fantastic, let's go to Northeastern, reach out to me. Okay, enough for our plug in the middle of the video there. Where were we? We had just done Converse's group, I believe. So that's again, we're through here. Group 1 is expected. Group 2, minor upset. Mizzou takes down North Texas. Group 3, Winthrop and Illinois Orange both take down Waterloo. Group 4, Converse beats Irvine and Bellevue. So those are some upsets right there. Then we move on to Group 5. And in Group 5, we have some interesting ones as well. Florida, University of Florida Orange beats Miami, Ohio. And here we go through here. We see that, this happened. Obviously, they go down to Northwood. This went as expected. It was expected to be one of the better matches, but ultimately, Waldorf did win it. And then as we go over to losers here, Orange beat out the Redhawks. And Redhawks beat Utah earlier this year. Redhawks have consistently been a team that's in the discussion for top 8, at least top 16, that sort of thing. They're out. They didn't make it through best of 2 top 24 here. So that's a surprise to see them go down. And they went down to UF Orange, who, when we look at our tier list, was not rated terribly well on our tier rankings. If you compare this to, for example, what's happened over on Collegiate Overwatch, the tier rankings that they did, you'll see that they ranked UF Orange a little bit better. They ranked them 29th. They made Carnegie Mellon and UW Stout as the bottom 2 teams. Those are the 2 teams that are believed to have thrown their first 2 matches and then taken the relatively easy 8 wins in a row from there. I wasn't quite as nice because I knew Carnegie Mellon had a relatively real win in there. But hey, that's what we're looking at. So we see that, okay, UF Orange making some moves, went ahead and got their win over the Redhawks there, which of course tanks the Redhawks ranking here. I mean, anyone who loses at this point is out, or anyone who loses twice. Wait, that's so huge. Who's on Converse? They can't be a fluke. They must be cracked. Converse is great. Maxwell, who I've worked with before, is on Converse. I am annoyed that I got into the collegiate scene before he went to. Uh, I got into the collegiate scene too late to do recruiting for this year, unfortunately, because he is one of the first people I would have targeted. But we see that he went over to Converse, and let's take a look. Sorry, I'm forgetting which group they were in. Was that 3? No, Converse was group 4. Group 4, and we will look at Converse's roster. And you can see we've got Garchomp here. We've got Hattori. We've got Maxwell, who I've worked with before. We've got Quicks. And we've got Tours there. So they've got some known people in here, definitely. Some known people. Again, I've worked with Max Demencio here. But yeah, this is a solid team. Yes, I agree that Red Hawks is a team that consistently loses randomly, but I think this is the first time they lost when they shouldn't in playoffs specifically. Yeah, usually for the playoffs they turn it on, and even though I think when I did my video specifically predicting who would win groups, I actually expected that they would be in a situation where, let me go over to them. Red Hawks, which group were they in? Let's go back here. I actually expected that they would make it through this one. I actually did predict that this would be a Northwood plus Red Hawks group, even though my power rankings at the time would have put Waldorf above them. But Waldorf brought home the W and took them down, as they were supposed to, based on the rankings. And then Red Hawks crumbled and UF Orange gets it there. So there we go. Okay, moving on to Group 6. We've got a minor upset again. This is similar to Group 2, where this is a known group. This was always going to be a group that Maryville was going to win and Boise was going to get second in. But this is also a group where the two teams that are suspected of throwing their way in got in. My expectation was that Carnegie Mellon Catgirls were the bit stronger of the team there because they did have a win against a GM team at least on their way through. Turns out UW Stout took down the Catgirls. That said, ultimately, are they going to be eliminated tomorrow by Boise? Almost certainly. Okay. Is there plans for Collegiate to have lands in the future? Collegiate already has lands. Collegiate already has lands. They're generally local because that's how lands work, but Collegiate already has lands. Northeastern is looking into, hey, can we make one happen either this next semester or the following year? Hugh Fest was a land. You get lands. NECC held a land that I believe Bobcats won and Waldorf got second in. There's lands that are happening, but lands are generally not going to be all the top talent unless it's a big enough prize pool to get everyone there. And even then, you've still got travel expenses, travel time. These are students who have full schedules. They've got Overwatch plus full-time student, in some cases plus jobs, things like that. So it can be complicated to get all of the best talent out of land, but regional stuff absolutely is already happening in collegiate. That said, if you are looking, you track what is happening in collegiate and follow stuff and be like, I want to know what's going on in collegiate, I am making this channel one of the central places to do that, definitely. But another great place to do that is over here. The what used to be Tier 1.5 Discord has gotten together and formed Overwatch Collegiate. They've been making great posts about what to watch over on, what to watch, which teams have streams going when. They've put up good posts on Reddit, but also they're doing this on Twitter. We've got a lot of staff and some players who are really interested in growing this scene, making it better, making sure people can find stuff, because before there hasn't really been a centralized hub for finding the matches, and they're doing the absolute best that they can over there. I recommend you guys give these guys a follow, or if you don't use Twitter, go through to their Twitter to find their Twitch page, which is here. I did link Collegiate Overwatch down in the description below, so you guys have easy access to that there if you like. Okay, that was Group 6, minor upset here. Then we move on to Group 7, and Group 7 went Penn State beat Ohio State. So it looks like Ohio State fell apart. I don't know exactly when Ohio State fell apart. Ohio State probably fell apart when they lost to Illinois Orange in Nace, and then they took the loss to Penn State. Maybe that's not fair. Maybe Penn State always was the better team than them, but this has been some movement for Ohio State. Down from up here, where they were just ahead of Utah, down to here, and then immediately down to here, where, hey, that's just not working great for them. That said, again, maybe that was always the case because Waterloo also fell to here, and Waterloo did beat Ohio State earlier in the tournament. So maybe the scene has just leveled up and Ohio State didn't level up, and this is the result of that. I suspect some mentals had to go into that, but hey, this is what happened. Then we move on to Group 8, and everyone's really freaking out about Group 8 and going, oh my goodness, this is wild, but Group 8 went exactly as I expected. SCAD is really good, guys. Like, SCAD is really good. And if you look at my previous power rankings, I had SCAD in the Dark Horse tier. I also had SCAD ahead of Utah, who's down here, and Lords, who's down here. So SCAD was supposed to beat these two teams, and in my mind anyways, and they did. Now, SCAD, in my mind, lost a match earlier this season that they shouldn't have, but I wasn't there, I wasn't in their comms or anything like that. So, hey, that happened. Good for them. The reason we actually moved them in our power rankings is because of Converse's win, especially over Irvine there, which unbinds SCAD a little bit from what they were attached to there. But Group 8 went as it was supposed to in my mind. SCAD beat Utah. Then we had Lords beat UC Riverside. We don't know what'll happen between Lords and Utah. I would expect Lords is going to win that, but that is a close one. That would be one to watch tomorrow. In fact, if we went through like the most interesting matches to watch tomorrow, if I just did that real quickly here, let's go through because it's mostly going to be loser brackets that we're starting with here to get those. Our most interesting ones to watch are probably going to be Winthrop versus Illinois Orange. If we look at our new tier list, we can see that we have Illinois Orange right here, Winthrop right here. This should be one of the two best matches to watch to start. Obviously, we'll then have the grand championship matches where the team that's undefeated went 2-0 today, and the team that won back through losers bracket will do one more fight for who gets the top spot and who gets the bottom spot. But this would be one of the two matches to watch in my mind. And then this would be right here the other top match to watch, and this would be the higher level match of the two to watch, UCI versus Bellevue. And if we look at our new tier rankings here, we're going to see that, hey, UCI versus Bellevue, I believe UCI streams. Best place to find out if that is true is to go over and see what these guys post, because I bet they'll post it or they'll host it or they'll do something of the sort if they do. And you can tweet at them, I'm sure, to get that answer if not. But those are probably the two most interesting things that we'd be looking at in the first round there. We won't know what's going to happen in the championship rounds until we know who's actually won. Penn State versus UW could be interesting. I expect UW to get that. Lords versus Utah would probably be my number 3 pick for most interesting match to watch there. And you might prefer it to my number 2 pick, which was Illinois and Winthrop, because the two teams obviously are a little closer together. I'm looking at the wrong day's tier list, but the two teams are a little higher level. We have this up here. They're a little bit higher level. That might be more interesting than this, but these would be the 3 matches to watch effectively that's not it's those two that I'm trying to do linking. I wasn't trying to get that one, but okay, those are what we have. So that's what we've got. We look at our new tier list. I think we can now understand how things moved. SCAD is the king of the dark horse tier right now. Converse definitely needs to be watched more closely. Bellevue's potentially feeling a little bit vulnerable. Remember, they had loss earlier. That becomes a bit of a thing. Okay, now they're potentially looking a little bit soft here. We don't know what to make of Banana Slugs because they beat SCAD earlier but lost to Irvine, this sort of thing. So we've got them here for now. Lords has redeemed themselves with a win over Waldorf. They are a team that in NACE earlier in the season took a tough loss to Waldorf, but then in the play-ins, the finals of the play-ins, they did reverse that and actually went for the reverse sweep. You can check that out on their Twitch channel, Lords Esports. I'm not sure that's exactly what it's called, but you'll find it if you search that, and that was a good one right there. So that's sort of how we've mostly gotten to where we are in this one. We see we've moved some of these tiers around, but I think we've mostly covered what people needed to know there. If people have questions, absolutely throw them up in chat or comments. If you guys are enjoying this type of content, please do drop a like, consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. Yeah. And if you're looking to see more content like this, absolutely do let me know. You can leave comments down here. You can join my Discord and ping me. If you want to be parts of discussions when we're covering this sort of thing, join my Discord, become a watcher, all of that. Okay. The biggest is Hue in the fall, but there's a few that happen in the spring. Yes. Perfect. Talking about lands there. Okay, we'll call it there. Hope you guys enjoyed.